Me too.
I'll eat all this butter.
That's healthy.
All right. All right, Lo, so let's get started. You don't need to stop eating. I'm just gonna do an initial prayer for begin the work. Dear Father, dear Jesus, thank you for the opportunity today of meeting in this fraternal lunch, as we can share knowledge, we can find answers, and understand better our tasks, our goals as a family. Dear Jesus, may you protect us today, enlightening our thoughts and helping us to get a broader view of life. So be it. Oh, okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity of having a nice quorum today to talk about couples relationship.
How many? I'm going to be 6.
Oh, you're gonna be 6 soon, right? A month, a little bit more than a month. For those who are the first time here, this is a work we do every Monday, and every Monday, every first Sunday of the month, that we are talking about the family. So we started with the study of Jesus, the model and guide of family. And now we are going through the couples relationship wellness. We must have another 1 or 2 meetings about this subject. And then we will go through parents' relationship, or parents and kids relationship wellness. And finally, we will get to the family relationship wellness. So it's a full course related to family, how we understand family, and what is Spiritism can contribute to our understanding of family. Okay, this is based on the Projeto Espiritizar course, books as well. And specific about this couples relationship wellness, we started with, this is the 8th meeting, so we had a lot we went through so far. I will give a very, very quick overview, otherwise we will waste too much time and we won't be able to finish by 2 as we planned. So we talked about the myth of love, which is kind of trying to answer this question: how do we still think the relationship today?
Daddy,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm full.
Não, you gotta finish your plate, senão não vai ganhar chocolate.
Oba, eu vou comer tudo e eu quero chocolate.
So, our society lives in a very unconscious state of mind. And this is not just Spiritism talking, it's even a scientific point of view. We are still very far from achieving a full conscious of what we are doing here. And in the relationship, in a couple relationship is not different at all. Because We are looking for achieve happiness through the ideal relationship, the myth of the ideal relationship. We still believe in soulmates, and that comes from these fairy tales. And here is a little bit of what we live in our society. People dreaming about something that is really from fairy tales. The truth comes that all comes from the frog being kissed by the princess, turns to be the prince, and the witch is gone away, and they lived happily ever after. But real life, how it happens? We marry, and then we find that there is a frog on the way or a witch on the way. And this means about our immaturity of dealing with the relationship. We are in a world of what? What kind of the world we live? Me perdoe, eu só não coisa.
Lúcia.
Lúcia, você consegue entender bem?
Sim, sim.
Tá tranquilo?
Sim, sim.
Tá ótimo. Então, se tiver alguma pergunta,
tudo bem.
we can pass quickly to in Portuguese.
Okay.
But what kind of world do we live in?
Fantasy world. Fantasy.
Fantasy. Spiritism brought a full classification of worlds. So there are the primitive worlds that the primitive societies, as we saw this world passing through in the past. That is what we call world of trial and expiation, where the evil still is majority. So that's why we see so much evilness, because we are still but we are passing through a transition. Yes, my love.
I'm done already.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Uh, so we live in a world of trial expiation, but we are passing through a transition to achieve the world of regeneration, where goodness is the majority. Doesn't mean that we won't see evil, but the majority is goodness. So, in a world of trial and expiation, believing that the ideal relationship will happen, it's immaturity, right? It's our state of mind that we will find pure happiness in a world of trial and expiation. Doesn't make sense to the world we live in. So what is the problem really? We create the ideal spouse or partner versus the real partner. Like we create the twin souls, or the woman of my life, the man of my life. This all comes from idealization that comes from the potentiality. Yes, my partner, my husband, my wife could be ideal. Potentially, yes. Is it? Is it ideal? Perfect, the way I always wanted? I figure out that, yeah, not exactly. It's an idea. Only exists as a potential. An ideal to be realized. But right now, if we take a picture of this exact moment of life or existence of the spirit, still far from being an ideal. Okay? This comes from, to become real, to achieve it, we have an idea to materialize. ideas and ideals can be realized or not, right? For example, I have a dream. The dream can come real or not. Right? To live in a world that there is no wars. Is it real for a world of trial expiation? Hard to see it, because if evil predominates, it's hard to see a world that there is no conflicts.
Peaceful.
Yeah, we can't see all peacefulness where evil is still majority, right? It would be in the helm of idealization. So to realize comes to the level of possibilities. It is possible to turn an idea or ideal achieved. It is possible. So how it is the couple's relationship then? Well, we see that the couple's relationship is based in 4 different types of people dealing in this relationship. As we saw before, there is the ideal husband and the real husband, the ideal wife versus the real wife. And these 3 all the time relating to each other. So the real wife expecting the ideal husband, but living with the real husband. The real husband expecting to have the ideal wife, but really having to deal with the real wife. Therefore, in order to have a healthy couples relationship, it is necessary to identify, pardon me, it's necessary to definitely overcome this naive myth and comprehend that a relationship is a challenging experience. For this challenging experience, we have 3 options to live. We have the greater evil, the smaller evil, or the greatest good. For those who have participated before, Gisele, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember what is the greater evil? For a couple relationship, spouse relationship? Oops. Sorry. Gonna help her, Renata?
But I don't remember. I know that one by heart. Well, the greater evil is when you choose to stay married, but in a toxic relationship that makes you at first spiritually ill until it eventually emanates to your body and you become physically ill because the relationship is so toxic.
Yes, and we saw that a lot in the past, right? In the past, for example, the church prohibited the divorce, so people had to live in that toxic relationship until they died, and people were dying younger than they were supposed to because they couldn't stand and creating sickness. What is the smaller evil? The smaller evil is when we realize that this is not a good relationship, and before it turns to the greater evil, a toxic, totally unrespectful relationship, we divorce. Spiritism makes very clear in the Spirit's book, Kardec asks the spirits about, is it in the law of God that man and wife and woman divorce? And it's very clear there. Yes, you can do whatever you want. This law during Kardec's time, because during Kardec's new 1860s, 1850s, 1860s, most of the countries was still illegal divorce. Right now, most of the countries are legal. Not all of them. We know that some are not. But the spirits make very clear. You can do whatever you want. And if it's to preserve life, because the greatest gift God has given us is our body, as our life right now. If we don't preserve it, we're not taking care of the greatest gift we ever had.
Eddie, Eddie, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if I remember right, but it also says that the divorce only officializes something that was already over. Right?
Exactly. And we will talk a lot about this specifically today. And the greatest good. The greatest good is to develop the essential virtues that take the relationship to a next level. So we understand that unconditional love, renunciation, compassion, meekness, and humility or humbleness transform the relationship in truly this transforming, challenging experience. So, what is unconditional love? Unconditional love is I love the person, the real person, not the ideal person. The problem in our society is I'm married with the prince, I'm married with the princess, and I want to change that person until it becomes the, and don't accept the person as it is or one is. So if you're not playing here, please.
Mommy, Daddy,
Uh,
you can leave for us.
yes. Guilherme, você pode ligar a TV lá, por favor? I'm gonna put more on, okay? Go there. So that's unconditional love. I'm not that there is no uh, condition, because we just saw when we are talking about the greater evil, that if it's a toxic relationship, it's way better to choose the smallest evil than passing through that horrible relationship that it's gonna be making me sick. And then comes the other point. What is renunciation? Is it a passive thing? What is renunciation?
When you give
I
up
renounce
idea.
myself and I live for the other. Is it renunciation? What is renunciation? O que é renúncia? Renunciation, my dearest hearts, means I renounce to have that ideal person with me and accept the person as it is. And then we start working from that. I renounce creating this fairy tale in my life. And I wish to have, yes, a superior spirit with me, a Christ living in my house. I would love to, but we are still in a world of trial and expiation. So we will have to renounce the will that I have to have the perfect person on my side, and we will accept that this person has difficulties, limitations, as I do. Okay? Compassion. See the other person with issues, see the other person struggling with some issues, and love, even if the person is not perfect. You see, for example, a person who is full of selfishness. It's very hard to practice compassion for a person who just thinks about itself. But as we evolve, we think, well, this person doesn't know the truth yet. Tá funcionando lá?
Pode lançar, ela vai pro Netflix.
Okay. So this person doesn't know all the truth, as I don't, because we are all apprentices of love, right? So with that, I will love the person as is, he or she is, with its limitations. Meekness, accept that the other person and I are not perfect. And calm down. Understand with pure heart, as Jesus taught us. And humbleness to accept that, yeah, I don't live in a perfect relationship. So, with that, we pass through a few slides that we would talk. What about when only one of the couple is mature enough to develop the greatest good? What should he or she do? We have many cases here that people come, Eric, I understand what you're saying. I accept Spiritism in my life, but my husband or my wife are from other religion, atheists, whatever, and they don't agree with that. And this is exactly what the point, because the other person, let's say a materialistic person, what would that person think about renunciation that we just taught? That person would still try to change you until the end of the days. That's why we have to practice compassion with this person. So, is it possible? Yes, it is. So there is a wonderful message from Emmanuel. I can send to you guys if you are interested. And he says fully about this embracing this opportunity, this challenging experience opportunity, as we change ourselves, we change the environment around us, and consequently, the other person will start changing. Some will accept that and will evolve faster, some will not, and we will respect the time of each one with meekness and humbleness. It is essential to focus on ourselves, because sometimes we want to make the other person be meek, the other person have unconditional love, the other person be compassion. Am I doing my efforts to change? That's the most important. Or pass, we already saw this. It's basically saying what we already saw. So seek the real gain from the development of the virtues of the heart, resulting in inner perfection. So if each one does that, we are evolving, because we evolve as immortal spirits individually. Although this very specific moment of my existence, this relationship that I am in, is a great opportunity for me to develop virtues, perfect myself, to evolve. And there are many ways how a couple relationship can evolve. Could be a collaborative way, both work, co-labor, so each one does its part, or suggestion. Let's go through a little bit there. Collaboration, the collaborative function invites each one to collaborate with other in one's evolution process. Each one exercises the power to perform actions of transformation of one's own life, working, laboring, one's own process, and collaborating with the other. I will do what takes for me and will collaborate, will help with the other if the other obviously is open. And so this suggestive is the suggestive function is one in which the couple collaborates with each other, suggesting points for the other to reflect and possible change in something that hinders the harmony of the relationship. Since the healthier couples relationship in which the power relation is balanced in horizontal, and which suggests to the other possibilities of perfecting the relation without impositions and annulments. Very important, balanced horizontally. We are equal. Although I have knowledge of Spiritism, or I think I understand better life because of that, that doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody else. So working with balance horizontally, we are on the same level, will help the other person to accept the suggestions. Otherwise, I will be putting myself above the other, and the other will feel hurt about that, right? All right. And one of the most important things is to cultivate individuality and not individualism. What is the difference between individuality and individualism?
It was the same thing.
Until now.
Until now, yeah.
The second one is when we're actually selfish. You just think
That's
about yourself, like about the other. Individuality, when you understand that you have your own and you cannot completely change on behalf of someone because that someone wants you to be different, right? So you have to respect yourself, keeping your individuality, but you're still your own. Same thing when you have kids, and then
Exactly. Exactly.
What makes you unique, right? What
Yeah.
makes you you.
Yeah.
So the suffix ism means cult of the individual. I am not here to cult myself as, and then it comes to pride and selfishness. The individuality is exactly that. I understand that I am an immortal spirit. I evolve as one being, and we, as a society, evolve together, but I have to do my duties to evolve. I can't do the other's duty. I can't impose to others to evolve with me, as we sometimes wish. You have to go with me, and then we start dragging people around and create conflict.
And we can't expect to receive virtues as a gift from God, right? They have to be earned by our own efforts.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's important to understand that to develop individuality, I have to work in a few basic feelings or basic virtues that comes to my own. Self-welcoming, to embrace myself as I am, with my imperfections and my already achievements. And that, for that, we have to develop self-esteem, self-acceptance, self-confidence, self-valorization, and self-respect. So then we can really love ourselves, embracing ourselves, accepting that I am not perfect, but I have the immortality to achieve the relative perfection. Okay? And we went through this. What we have to understand, and this is very basic, but sometimes we forget. The woman has its individuality, the man has its individuality, and the relationship, it's what we have in common. What happens usually in a relationship? The woman has its likes and desires, the man has its own likes and desires, and what we have together, likes and desires, is we. But I can't impose mine or hers. Or can I? Well, so through dialogue, we can develop all those virtues, those wonderful virtues, and have a relationship conversion, both to get to evolve. What is really our reality? Oh, conflicts. Our reality is conflicts through two movements: individualism, as we saw, or self-annulation, também conhecido no português como autoanulação. The individualism is an egoic movement, the result of selfishness and egocentrism, which is centered on worship of self and rejection of others, as we talked before. And self-annulation is a result of individualism as well. It is based on the rejection of oneself and the attempt to terminate one's individuality to please the other. It is generated by the feeling of importance, producing the pseudo-altruism. So let's see some examples of this. So we have a wife who self-annuls herself, and an individualist or dominator husband. What happens? They've had what will happen in this case? A wife is self-annulling herself, and a husband is dominating the relationship. The man will basically takes over all her feelings and desires. Does it happen the opposite? For sure, it can be the wife. So in the case of the wife doesn't have likes and desires anymore, and the husband imposes his. The same can happen. A wife individualist and dominator, a husband self-annuller, and the result is the same. So there is a third option that both are individualists, which we see a lot in this society that we live. What is this? Can someone give an example? People who live together, but they have all my own stuff, you have your own stuff. Looks like college partners, right? Like we live together, but roommates.
Roommates with benefits.
And what happens in this case? There is no relationship really. It's just all occasional relationship, what the people call colored friendship, or because personal interests, right? Could be money, could be sex, could be whatever. And all this creates divergence, all these bad feelings that we have that doesn't help us to evolve. So is it possible to have a healthy couples relationship without conflicts? Is it possible?
No.
And we reflect about it already, right? Because we live in a world of trial and expiation. There are no perfect people living in here.
So, like you were saying, the spiritists have live in three worlds, like
Well, there are more worlds.
but the three that you mentioned earlier, like the less educated or
The
advanced,
primitive, yes,
the one that we are at the moment, and the good will.
that we're
Yeah.
passing.
Better than ours.
But yeah, and that one, would that question never be asked, right?
Exactly. Because if we were, and after the regeneration world, we have the happy world. That's what we call. So just happy people live there. Superior spirits who had passed through all the process of depuration of our evilness or our ignorance, saying better than evilness. As we get knowledge of this truth, which is truth, the divine laws, we get closer to God. This is the question 115 of the Spirit's book. As we get closer to God, we achieve this relative perfection and relative happiness. Relative because we will be always relative than the absolute. The absolute is just God. Otherwise, we would believe that we would be turning gods, and then there are multiple gods, which is not the case. So the conflicts arise because pride, selfishness, and now we are really starting the. We have another.
Pode dar contigo quando você quiser.
Pode. Where it arise the conflicts? From our pride, selfishness, and egocentrism. They bring the individual to individualism by imposing their point of view on the other. Finally, this creates an immediate conflict in the relationship with the other that will be manifested in two ways in the person who is the target of the conflict. A passive, for sure. A person will turn passive to this conflict. It's external conformation. It is what it is. Life is not perfect, so I will accept the other. For example, being rude all the time with me, or even worse, going to physical hurt. As we know, it's fairly common in our society. And with a greater inner revolt, the conflict remains hidden. Or the reactive, the insurrection against the other, forcing its own point of view. The conflict becomes quite obvious. So this is a bogus way to manage conflict. Point of view, imposition. Is it bogus?
Yeah, what is that?
Douglas, help me.
It's,
Yes.
yes,
Mistaken.
it's more of a slang than.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something
When you
that
say
doesn't
something
really
is
make
bogus,
sense.
you're like, yeah, this is not real, this is not for real, this is
It doesn't make
BS.
sense.
Yeah.
The other six should resolve the conflict and pseudo humbleness and self-will. Pseudo acceptance from the other's point of view, and the conflict is postponed because one of them is self-annulling, annihilating or annulling itself. Sooner or later, the conflict arises because nobody can be annihilated, for a long time. And finally, after the self-annulment uh, movement is exhausted, a much more violent insurrection takes place since the conflict has been repressed and now appears with full force. Full force. Okay. What is essential then? How can we manage? If we can't live without conflicts, how can we manage enough proactive and essential, as essential beings we are, connected to our conscience, which is where the divine laws are residing? How can we manage this? So, the conflict generated by the imposition of point of view over the other, it will happen. How we're gonna deal with it? The connection of the person with the essential sentiments. What are the essential sentiments? What are essential sentiments? Virtues. Our virtues, right? Remember the virtues what we said, talked before, the five of them. So, essential sentiment of love, creating humbleness and acceptance of the other as is, with limitations and qualities. Acceptance of the other who is willing to impose himself or herself, without, however, accepting his imposition. We'll accept the person, but I won't accept the attitude. Because most of the time, what we do, we confuse the person with the attitude. In Portuguese, this is very easy to say. In English, is a little harder. Em Português, we say, a pessoa é assim, a pessoa não é assim, ela está assim. É a atitude dela. Can you understand this?
Yeah, because it's the same in Spanish, ser and estar.
Ser and estar. La persona no es como esto, ela está como esto. In English, it's a little harder because the verb to be means both.
Yeah.
And then we have to say, the person is now like this, but is not really is essential. Okay? And then comprehension of the egoic movement of the other, seeking, if possible, to equate the conflict through dialogue, in which each other will yield in their own point of view, seeking a common point of view, a common ground, as we usually say, a consensus of the two. Conflict resolution. So we had a problem, we dealt with maturity, understood what is the problem, accept that I am not the master knowing all the truth, and the other not accepting also the wrong movements of the other person, but dealing with the comprehending the egoic move, and through dialogue. The dialogue is very important. And I understand that usually men don't like to dialogue. But We have to keep
The most
pursuing it.
beautiful thing we heard today.
Yes.
I am a man who likes to dialogue. Sometimes I like to dialogue too much. Cynthia complains about it. Eric, you talk too much. But
That's
that's
not a
what-
common thing.
No.
I shouldn't be saying that I'm an example because I am not, but we should be trying to exercise it. That's the point. So in the couple's relationship, we have the dysfunctionalities in this relation. Oh my Deus. That's lunch and learn period. Immaturity of one or both, psychological dependence. Valeu, meu querido. Fica com Deus. Boa. So, how can we grow as a person in this? We start with the dependency of this relationship. Then we start developing the psychological independence. But am I fully independent when I am in a relationship? I can't be, because then it's not a relationship, and then we have the two worlds separate there. And finally, achieving social interdependence. It's not that I am dependent, but we are both dependent in every move, and accepting it with maturity is very important. This functionalities comes from lack of affection. This is the best way I found to translate carência afetiva. It's a very hard thing that our society lives very broad right now, and this is why so many people get sick of oh my god, this is the word right now.
Sick day at work?
Oh, Laura.
Sick day?
No. It's one of the biggest sickness that we have is depression. Exactly. Because I don't feel loved, I don't feel appreciated, and then this lack of affection culminates in the depression. It could be reciprocal approach of lack of being with the other, true in need, the empty relationship, trying to fulfill the void. So one, self-love dependency toward the other. What does it result? Insecurity. Is it common or not? I love you so much that you can't live by my side. So creates insecurity, a codependence, movement seeking love in the other. You have to love me. You're obligated to love me. And finally, it produces a repulsive energy because the person becomes addicted to the other. It's like a sticky, pegajoso, grudento. No exchange of energy. And finally, addiction, jealousy, and betrayal. Because nobody can survive in this sick environment, right? At first, this quest to fill the emptiness with the other is pleasant because the person was alone and has the other. Generates a false feeling of fulfillment. Sooner or later, aggressions begin because this mutual dependence generates a relationship where and here it's broken. It's broke apart. And finally, May initiates a movement of martyr. What does it mean? With self-annulment and or mutual aggression. So I am the poor person here. The problem is the other. The other one is the aggressor. The other one is the rude person and all this. But do I have the power to change it or not? I can't change the person. Can I change the situation? Yes, I do. And if I don't change, I keep showing to the rest of the world, he or her is the bad one. I am the good. But this is their own movement because nobody's here to be martyrs. So one can seek to fulfill void by breaking with the relationship and seeking another. Infidelity. Very common in our society. And this is our final slide. What is the true normals movement then? A desire of the idealized person, partner, someone tender who fulfill my desires. Who, what becomes real really is fulfillment of the desire with another partner, pursuing a new relationship, the infidelity. Yeah, this is probably the most common thing that happens. We create a recyclable relationship in our days, right? Like we watch what happens in Hollywood and global for whoever is from Brazil. Actors and actresses change from husband and wives like it was just a car. And they have contracts. They are not even together yet, but they already have contracts to say what are the limits of their relationship. So this is a problem because if they start not finding what they were looking for, you go for a new relationship. So basically, they start something that's already doomed to death. Or the other movement, after the frustration of not having the ideal spouse, maintains a movement of martyr, as we just saw, toward the partner, which suffers the desire to meet the couple's obligation. It's a process of negation and repression of the desire until the death do us apart. As the maxim from the Catholic Church during the marriage says, we can't separate what God has bonded. But what is the right movement for us, really? To maintain a movement of psychological independence in which one seeks to love, accepting, valuing, and respecting oneself as is, and at the same time makes exercises to love the other or to the other, accepting, valuing, and respecting as the other is. There is renunciation of the ideal relationship. Now it becomes very clear what is the renunciation. I renounce to have the fairy tale relationship, but I will accept to have the person I feel that's right to be with me, right? As it is impossible in our evolutionary state, relation as it is possible in our evolutionary state. Then we have a relationship healthy. Okay, I guess I'm in the last slide, and I would love to hear from you guys something. I have tried to go for. I have to reduce a little bit though the overview. It's too long. You're back.
Plus.
He missed us.
No, I give you a high. We're leaving soon. So any question?
I like it. It's a really weird thing.
It is very simple, and most of it, if we do some effort, we already know, right? Not telling much the truth. I think for me, one big thing that I found in this course, in this way of thinking the relationship, is really understanding that those virtues better. Because usually I didn't. Unconditional love for me is okay. I love you with no condition, as we do as parents. You know, but does a parent agree when a kid is doing something wrong? There are conditions. You can't keep kicking me or hurting me, right? Why we do this with the kids, and sometimes with the spouse we don't.
But I think it comes down to that difference between individuality and the individualism. The fact that we're still discussing it's because it seems to me that historically, if you're a good Christian, then you cannot think of yourself. You can only think of others, and you give to a point that you don't care about yourself, right? And I was reading recently a book on parenting, and the way the author described that you have to take care of yourself, which is the individuality part, is when you're on the airplane and they're giving you instructions for emergency. The crew says if the oxygen mask drops, first on you, then on your kid, which means you have to take care of yourself. But I think historically, as Christians, we think, no, I can't think about myself because I'm thinking about myself. And then, selfish, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
So then we don't need those five virtues that you're talking about. And I think there's a misconception.
It is.
As Christians.
And believe me, still in the Spiritist movement, we see that because we understand charity in a very, very wrong way. It's actually a pseudo virtue of charity that we see a lot in the Spiritism some days, because we have to go external. And are we charitable to ourselves first?
Mm-hmm.
Can I do something to others if I don't have inside me? That doesn't make any sense. Can I love well the others if I hate myself? Doesn't make sense. Can I be just? Can I be fair to other people if I am unfair to me all the time? Doesn't make no sense. So this invitation to bring to us, develop these things, and then, yes, we have to practice. But the practice really will happen. There is a beautiful way to say in Portuguese, and I will try to translate the best I can. Mas a virtude, ela transborda de nós. So the virtue overflows from us. So as we are a virtue person, or persons or people, everybody will feel. Jesus didn't need to go after people running out, I need to do charity, I need to help other people. People would come to him because they could feel him, truly, all the power of his love. So that's a great invitation. And for sure, imagine if other people feel like in Spiritist Center or my work, imagine the person who most deals with you during the life, it's the spouse, and for sure the kids. But the spouse, as we change ourselves, we feel that. We have a big example here in FSS, a lady who used to come, and she had a lot of problems of anxiety and everything. And her husband is atheist, but those radical atheists that always try to prove that spiritism doesn't exist, religions are better, are bad, all this kind of thing. But we could see her changing through the time, her anxiety changing through the time. And one day he turned to her, yes, I feel that you are different than a few years ago. And I'm not saying that the FSS changed her. It's not that her efforts changed her. We have a tool here. We can use this tool well or not. It's up to us. If we use it well in the possibilities we have, we will achieve some good development. If we don't, we will be just wasting another tool that God gave us. God gave us the gospel of Jesus. 2,000 years and we still don't understand it. God gave us Spiritism to understand in the fine details the gospel. Can we still refuse to understand it? Yes, we can. It's our choice. It's a tool. Won't force us. There is a law of freedom, and free will is something that God will never interfere. If we choose to stay where we are, we will stay. We will suffer. We will move slowly, but it is what it is. It's our choice. Well, my friends, it's 2:02, so that clock is a little advanced. But I would like to finish because I know that everybody has some more stuff, and I need to eat some pudding.
Moa and
Really
Marcus,
good.
Moa and Marcus are not here today,
So
so
you're lucky.
I usually have to take a piece and put it away in that area when they're here, so today I didn't have to do that. They're still.
Right on. Thank you very much. Okay. Does anybody feels to make our final prayer?
Huh?
I'm trying. I will get there.
You do it so beautifully at home.
Yeah.
You're trying to run away,
Yeah.
but you need the cup.
I will solve this shyness issue soon. Today they were actually collaborating a lot.
At the gospel at home, she did the final prayer this last week, and we pray together every night.
Cool.
She's just a little shy.
That's all right. Okay, so let's rise our thoughts to the higher life. Feel those 5 virtues developing through the timeline of our future. See yourself developing unconditional love. See yourself developing renunciation of the ideal husband or wife, but accepting them as they are. Feel yourself working compassion toward the other, understanding through indulgence as the others are imperfect, as you is imperfect. You are imperfect. Feel the meekness, accepting that you are not perfect yet, and that you will have time, all the immortality of the spirit to evolve. Not trying to create a process of perfectness that you still don't have. And finally, the humbleness, seeing yourself as an apprentice, learning every day, avoiding the feeling of master, which we are still far away from being. With that, we will raise our individuality. We will contagiate. We will overflow these virtues from us. And happiness will surround us. Day after day. May Jesus, our mentors, our guardian spirits, allow us to practice this knowledge and help us when we struggle, so then we will rise, the new man, the new woman. So be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, muchas gracias.
Very good. I told Gabriel we should stay here because the earlier he learns that, the easier.
We will have his time.
Oh,
A
yeah.
reunião foi muito legal hoje. Eu espero que eles tenham gostado. Eles acharam um pouco difícil, realmente, porque não
Mas
estavam
é exatamente
acostumados.
a ideia, desafiar.
Mas foi bem diferente, não tinha um monte de material, a gente sentou.
Eu só queria avisar, porque o Sofia estava comendo doce que era para pagar.
Mas
Sofia,
olha,
vem aqui.
tattletale.
Muito obrigado.
Que delícia.
You practice with authenticity.
Tão bonita, tão bonita.
Você está comendo doce? Você pediu?
Ana Clara tá ótima.
Você pediu? Não, você não pediu.
Ai, bonitão.
Yes, you can. Pode? Quantos você comeu já? Você já comeu dois, esse aqui é o terceiro? Esse aqui é 3? Quantos? How many you have already ate? 2, and you have the third now?
Ah, o Guilherme tá mais rápido que
Hã?
eu. Aqui, ó. Aqui,
This is
Guilherme.
the third?
Você tá rápido?
Nós comeram cada uma, na verdade.
Ah, ok.
Ó, tá vendo? A Ana Clara veio desde
Sophie, you gotta
inteira.
ask. You gotta ask before you eat. We already told it. We already talked about it. That's not nice taking things without. Oops, without the text. Às vezes cai no
É, então, eu
coma.
tava preocupada, na verdade, com a Gisele, porque eu tava do lado de cá. Ah, não.
Eu tô pegando o ônibus ali, porque eu tenho um amigo que vai passar às 2h30.
Ah, Renato, teu livro tá aqui ainda, tá?
Demora pra sair assim, né?
Você vem amanhã então, Renato? E você, como é que tá lá a divisão? Tem quem que faz o que amanhã?
Então, não tinha ninguém saindo pra nada.
E eu sei que você tá super sobrecarregado, então.
Eu vou ter que vir amanhã fazer um atendimento fraterno, mas
Mas se você não tiver preparado nada, né?
ajuda,
Já te
porque aí eu
ajuda.
consigo focar na produção.
Sim, não pode ficar tranquilo. Eu
E-
e o Guilherme
Gratidão.
vamos fazer a palestra? Beleza.
Ó, só para lembrar, na outra semana você vai estar aí ainda, né? Eu não vou estar aqui nas próximas semanas. Renata, você não vai estar na próxima semana.
Na próxima semana eu tenho eles full time.
Então deixa eu fazer o estudo, amanhã você faz a palestra, o que você ia fazer?
Eu tinha colocado para traduzir essa de hoje para amanhã.
Então eu faço o estudo amanhã, tá bom? Porque aí você me dá uma mão lá na outra
E na
semana.
outra semana já tem alguém, ou a Sônia ou o Luiz, já estão acho que, programados para estudo. Então vai passar alguém para palestra. Só.
Vou colocar meu nome, então.
Beleza.
Não, chega, você já comeu 3 chocolates. Chega, só.
Não comeu,
Ei, lower your voice. Baixa a voz. Não grita.
São, acho que 5. Desse lado aí, acho que são 5. São 5. E aí, o corredor é mais. Perfeito. E aí, vamos ajudar, Maria? A gente poder ir mais.
Esse sapato tá fazendo o que aqui?
O David ficou. Não, amor. Nós estamos montando as cadeiras de novo. He wants to close the chair and put them away again. I'm like, no, we're doing the other side.
Eu vou puxar aqui na.
Você bota 5?
5, vai.
Oi?
Dinheiro, eu boto na caixinha rosa.
Isso, pode botar na caixinha ali.
Eu acho que vai mais um, acho que são 6. O corredor tá
Gente,
bem claro.
gratidão aí pela